Right here on Morning Cafe. Thank you so much for keeping it the home of untold stories. It's good to have you this morning. Karibu sana. It's my hope that you had a great night. My name is Linda Alela, and once again the program is Morning Cafe. Let's take a look at what is happening right here and across the world. We'll be getting into the political bit, just deciphering on what has been of the Jubilee government, that is President Uhuru Kenyatta, and what legacy does he leave behind. At some point he says he would wish to leave a peaceful nation. He would seek to make sure that his Big Four agenda, is met, and a couple of other matters, including dealing with the question of corruption. And so we ask today, has he managed to do this? If not so, then what are these other things that he has achieved for the nation when he comes out to say that he has performed way better than all the other presidents that we have heard combined? And so let's get into this conversation later on, as I'll be looping in my guests. But for now, we first take a look at what is happening on the papers. Just to remind you that there's going to be a presser of the Deputy President William Ruto as well as the IEBC later on the broadcast, and therefore we'll be crossing over there to hear what they have to say. Most importantly, we'll be having the Baraza with our very own Violet from Kakamega, and as well later on we'll be hitting the gym on Fitness Thursday. So we have so much lined up for you. Make sure that you keep it right here as well. Interact with us. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47 KE. And let's get to look at what the papers detail this morning. Later on, I'll be expounding further on them alongside my guests. But it's all about politics. New bid to block Ruto allies in race. A story captured on page 6. Is it a fresh hurdle for them? Can persons with cases in court and resolved integrity questions be cleared to vie for public office? These are the questions that linger at the heart of a new case seeking to review Chapter 6 of the Constitution, interpretation and which targets Deputy President William Ruto's UDA party, its candidates in Tuesday's polls, and other facing questions. A story captured on page 6. We'll be looking at this on the question of integrity. Remember, the EACC as well as the civil society released the list, or a list of leaders they think should not be cleared for certain office by the IEBC. But then, of course, IEBC within its mandate argues that they would not do that unless a person is, considered or rendered guilty. And therefore, we'll be having this conversation just to get to understand whether this is a political target or genuinely there is a concern, and what it would mean for these individuals to go it all the way to the race. And then, of course, if they're lucky enough to garner the certain positions that they seek, what then happens during their reigns as to the question of corruption. IEBC audit by KPMG and Arts ghost IEBC officials. Well, this is quite unfortunate and interesting to watch. A story captured on page 5, and therefore we'll be looking at it just to get to understand what really this is all about, and especially at this last hour when the IEBC is setting itself for the general election as well. Another story, final act inside the president's hectic diary. Our story captured on page 6 has been out here commissioning projects and making sure that at least he's able to secure a legacy that he so wished. And so we'll be looking at his reign. I mean, what it's been all about, the Jubilee government, one that many argue has not really performed well. But in the eyes of the president, he says he's really tried, and especially on the second time where he says, he had to shed off some of those ones that really did not have a goodwill of him achieving some of these projects, and work with the likes of Right Honorable Raila Odinga, getting advice as to how he attains some of this. And so we'll be looking at it as well as the other stories that have been captured on the other papers. And yes, playing dirty, that is on the question of decision 2020. We only have 4 days to the general election, and therefore this year the leading candidates have abandoned their manifestos, that is for a pig fight with their opponents, tearing at each other with unsubstantiated claims of moral corruption, impropriety, dishonesty, outright treachery, and dramatically raising political temperatures. As back-to-back campaigns are hot up on these very last days, we only have 2 days, and on the 6th they'll be closing. They all come to Nairobi. Just how much have they managed to convince their voters, or to convince their supporters, that indeed they are on course? And above everything, the 7% undecided voters, just how then will they manage by the end of the campaign session to make sure that they woo them to their side. On this other side, Gachagua is unfit to vie, activists claim in court, and therefore we'll be looking at this question of integrity as we unpack on all this. Those are the biggest stories captured on the Daily Nation and the and the Standard newspaper. What's in the People Daily? Let's briefly look at what the People Daily details this morning. Chebukati man in the spotlight indeed. IEBC boss has changed the way he operates as clock ticks towards Tuesday polls. Will his new strategy work this time around? We'll be looking at what this strategy is all about, as well as we take a look at the preparedness of the IEBC. Lavish lifestyle man who let double underworld life, and this in regards to the numerous acts that are always played by our very own individuals that really do not look into the question of integrity, and they're always out there to conduct heinous acts, but then again they make it to live lavish lives, and therefore sometimes it gets to levels where this is questioned and trying to unearth it, you realize that it's not always a good thing, and especially when they operate in ring of gangs that would otherwise do dubious activities or live dubious lifestyles. And so that is in Nakuru. Also, as we have been looking at the gangs that have been murdering people down there, we'll be hoping to get a hold of Chichi Josephine, who gives us updates on this. 4 million Kenyans face risk of acute hunger. That is a story captured on page 2. I don't know why I'm not getting a whole view of this, but all the same, it is one of the stories that has been captured and speaks volumes as to the tough times that we are experiencing in the country. High cost of living, one of the key things that has made many argue that the Uhuru government really has not done us justice. Those are the key stories. Let's shelve that for a moment. No much happening on the road, and pick these stories that have been prepared by my team. And Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has apologized for the sudden closure of schools that most parents say inconvenienced their schedules as they try to make arrangements to get their children home. And according to CS Magoha, the unprecedented closure of schools was occasioned by IEBC's preparations ahead of the August 9th general election, as Andrin Kilemi tells us.
Professor George Magoha has taken full responsibility for the unprecedented closure of schools that tossed parents into confusion as they scrambled to get their children home safely.
I know that people are very unhappy that the schools were closed abruptly. Let me apologize on behalf of government. But you see, the Electoral Commission must be given whatever they want, whenever they want, in order to be able to carry out a free, fair, and justifiable election.
In a statement issued Monday, Magoha directed that all students from basic institutions would proceed on their half-term effective Tuesday.
Sahi ataka ni fair, ni kukopa tunakopa. Yeah? Sahi watoto wametoka mbali, sahi mimi nimeendea mtoto wangu kutoka huko Kidhongori, sahi hata mimi sina fair, sahi nimeitisha mtu hapa rafiki yangu.
According to the education boss, the decision to close schools was to allow IEBC enough time to prepare for the August 9 general election, as most schools would be used as polling centers.
So the small pain that I have caused you, I take full responsibility because I'm the one who was supposed to say it. I think the swords you have sent on me are now enough. But it's also important that the Electoral Commission gets access to schools, and not to say that we did not give them enough time to prepare for the election.
Magoha was speaking after launching new CBC classrooms at Umoja Secondary School in Uasin Gishu County, further assuring parents that learning would resume smoothly after election.
So as I take full responsibility, please try and understand that I love the children, and I would be the last person to put their life or anything at risk.
The government is committed to ensure the needed infrastructure is in place before December, as learners in junior secondary schools are expected to begin next year. Andrin Kilemi, TV 47.
Now, police in Nakuru have arrested the leader of Mawaga killer gang, Dickson Macharia Waithera, commonly known as Diko. A 35-year-old in Nakuru is alleged to be the confirmed gang leader that has been committing crimes in Nakuru County.
Dickson Macharia was arrested last night in his parents' home in Kivumbini Estate through a concerted effort by security officers in the region for some time now.
Following the death of Biggie, the elder member of the royal family, then of course his brother, Cody Deko, who is with us here now, took over the reins. And he equally now continued with the operations, and it has been very difficult to reach him. But fortunately last night, an operation was conducted and we were able to catch up with him.
The recent murders of 6 women in Nakuru hit the highlights on the dreaded gang that was outlawed during KNCHR's tenure. In the recent cases, 4 gang members were killed in Ballot area.
In fact, he's assisting.
According to Nakuru County Police Commander Peter Mwanzo, security personnel who were acting on the intelligence leads recovered 3 phones, a laptop and narcotics valued at over 331,000 from the suspect.
Proceeds that already he had was 5,535. And of course, a consignment of bangi, together inclusive of all these roll, of the market value of 331,220.
The suspect is alleged to have been operating a well-organized drug syndicate within Nakuru, where he is believed to have recruited over 200 youth to sell narcotics.
The intelligence that we got is that this gentleman coordinates a network of more than 200 young men. Every morning, they all congregate to his residence within Kivumbini, collect the drugs, and he distributes the drug. He has a network that distributes the drugs within Nakuru.
Macharia is suspected to be responsible for planning of the gang activities, according to the police, and is expected to be arraigned in court tomorrow. Chichi Josephine, TV 47.
A Federation of Women Lawyers, FIDA, has released a report detailing that 745 women have encountered election-related sexual-based violence. And according to FIDA, women aspirants, voters and supporters are encouraged to report the cases, asking relevant authorities to ensure safety of all. Cheptoboit details.
Declare the FIDA Kenya media.
As the country gears towards the August 9th election, cases of violation of human rights, especially on women, are reported to be on the rise.
Also responding to matters.
According to data from the Federation of Women Lawyers, FIDA, 745 cases of election-related sexual gender-based violence by women have been reported countrywide since the nomination period.
We are reporting more cases of verbal and verbal hate speech. We are also reporting more cases on cyber, online and online harassment, as opposed to physical assault.
According to the lobby group, Siaya County leads in the violation with 59 cases, trailed by Kisumu, Nairobi, Kericho and Marsabit, adding that SGBV is prevalent against women aspirants, voters and supporters.
I think one of the things we're analyzing is also the reason for the violence. But from this very early stage, we can see a lot of the counties where the numbers are high are also predominantly areas where politics is really highly contested. So there could be a correlation. So as we look at what will happen on the 9th of August, we'll also be issuing a post-election statement.
FIDA has promised to keep an eye on the election to ensure safety of women during the voting process, and that they have their lawyers in every county to undertake disputes from the electoral process.
Through IEBC, we remind and the government, we remind them of the primary responsibility of the importance of the free and fair elections, conduct ourselves with tolerance, and express our freedom of expression and assembly that is guaranteed in our constitution.
Women have been encouraged to report the cases, with the group asking relevant authorities to ensure safety of all Kenyans. It is estimated that 1 out of 3 women experience sexual or physical abuse in a lifetime, while GBV remains the most prevalent yet the least reported form of human rights violation and is exacerbated during emergencies. Chepto Boit, TV47, Nairobi.
And as the drought situation in some parts of the country persists, the government, through the Ministry of Agenda and its development partners, has launched the Lisha Jamii initiative aimed at providing food assistance and cash transfer to a portion of the 4.1 million Kenyans facing food insecurity. Elizabeth Atieno reports.
It is 11 months since President Uhuru Kenyatta declared drought a national disaster. The number of Kenyans facing acute food insecurity in 23 counties has risen to 4.1 million, up from 3.5 million in March 2022. The affected counties include Marsabit, Wajir, Isiolo, Samburu, Baringo, Turkana, Mandera, Garissa, Kilifi, Kwale, Lamu, Laikipia, West Pokot, Meru, Nyeri, Tharaka Nithi and Kitui.
On the IEBC food insecurity phase classification, 3 counties are in emergency, 8 counties are in crisis, 12 counties are stressed, and the 24 counties are yet to be assessed.
If the months of September to December experience depressed rainfall, then the number of people in need of relief food is expected to rise to 4.35 million by December, which will in turn raise the government's expenditure of drought mitigation. So far, the government has spent 12.6 billion on interventions like emergency relief, hunger safety and cash transfer programs, livestock feeds and water response activities, which have been largely contributed by the private sector and the county governments.
However, despite the interventions, the persistent drought has left the country with a resource gap of more than 15 billion Kenya shillings for interventions required in critical sectors of food security, health and nutrition, water, agriculture, livestock, and education.
The anticipated increase in the number of Kenyans affected by hunger has prompted the Ministry of Gender and its development partners to launch the Lisha Jamii initiative that will provide food assistance and cash donation to the affected families for a period of 6 months.
We're talking about 2.1 million people faced by severe food insecurity across Kenya. We're now looking at the prospect of double that, more than double that, 4.35 million Kenyans going hungry from October if the 5th rains fail.
Consequently, the number of people in need of relief assistance could easily rise from 4.1 projected to 4.35 projected by December 2020.
The Lisha Jamii initiative targets 59,000 families from the counties of Turkana, Samburu, Isiolo, Garissa, Tana River, Baringo, Mandera, Wajir, Kitui, Kilifi, Kwale and Marsabit. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47.
And Ford Kenya party leaders Moses Wetangula has criticized the government following the move to deny Kenya Kwanza Alliance a venue to hold their last rally slated for this weekend in Nairobi. Wetangula says they will be forced to make sure that they push on this to make sure that at least they're allowed to go and conduct the rally in the city to wrap up the campaigns ahead of the next week general polls. Boniface Baraza with that.
In their tour of expansive Trans Nzoia County, the Ford Kenya party boss pointed an accusing finger at the government agencies for denying them a stadium to hold their last rally this weekend.
Tulitaka Nyayo Stadium, wakafunga. Tulitaka Kasarani, wakafunga. Na vile wanatufungia sisi, wanafungulia kitendawili Kasarani. Sasa tumeambia Uhuru na serikali yake tutafanyia rally yetu ya mwisho Kenyatta Avenue.
Other leaders who accompanied him in the campaign trail called on the electoral body not to be manipulated and instead oversee a credible poll.
IEBC must ensure there's free, fair and credible elections. Nimesikia watu wengine wanajikamba ati wanajipanga kuiba kura. Sisi tunachunga kura. Na mtu mwenye attempt kuiba kura, tutaonana na hao watu mundu.
The campaign saw Dr. Chris Wamalwa receiving a major boost after Timothy Kiplagat Koril, an independent candidate in the Trans Nzoia gubernatorial contest, shelved his ambition and supported Wamalwa.
Mimi nilikuwa naambia watu mimi ni namba 2 mgongoni, lakini sasa nimevuta namba 2 tuende namba 6. Hiyo kura yote ambayo ulikuwa unipe kwa unyenyekevu, patieni Mheshimiwa Chris Wamalwa.
Boniface Barasa, TV47.
Now, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, KNCHR, has cancelled on political leaders to promote peaceful, or has called on them to promote peaceful elections as they traverse across the country, wrapping up the election period with only 5 days to go. The KNCHR says that from its report, violence might erupt if politicians fail to accept the outcome of the results.
The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has called for the deployment of sufficient security personnel to the strongholds to ensure human rights are not violated before, during and after the Tuesday election. This comes a day after Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i announced the deployment of more officers to the Rift Valley region.
The National Security Council has ordered additional security resources for this region.
The Commission therefore calls on sufficient contingency measures by all actors, including the Inspector General of Police, to deploy additional security to these areas and swiftly, in line with human rights principles and standards, contain any such incidences before they escalate.
The Commission has also pointed out that it is optimistic there will be a smooth transfer of power if the top presidential candidates willingly accept the results, whether they favor them or not. The Commission expressed gratitude in respect to the inclusion of women in this year's race, adding that 3 out of 4 presidential running mates are women.
Based on the history of our nation, the divisive and highly competitive politics that the country is currently witnessing, and the Commission's own analysis of the hotspots across the country, there is a likelihood that in strongholds of some of the candidates, there may be disgruntlement and civil unrest should their candidate not win the election.
Meanwhile, police officers in Nakuru County have assured a smooth running of the election, stating confidently that they are well equipped to ensure peaceful election come next week. The Human Rights Commission further appealed to all the stakeholders to work hand in hand in order to deliver to Kenyans a free, credible and peaceful election. With only 5 days remaining to the general election, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights is urging politicians to shun from insightful utterances that may lead to violence in the country. Flora Limuki, TV47, Nairobi.
All right, the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi is now advising its citizens against traveling to Kisumu ahead of the Tuesday polls. And as Stanley Nyangirita reports, Kisumu County Governor Professor Anyang' Nyong'o has faulted the advisory, terming it ill-advised.
Hours after publishing a controversial routine security alert that raised eyebrows in the country, the U.S. Embassy in Kenya has released yet another update. According to the fresh update, and I quote, alerts of this nature to American citizens are common ahead of elections throughout the world, and the United States has no information to suggest the security situation in Kisumu or in any other parts of Kenya have been adversely affected by election preparations. The update further stated that Kisumu hosts a significant number of U.S. Embassy personnel and is a frequent travel destination for American citizens. The U.S. Department of State has no greater responsibility than the safety and security of U.S. citizens overseas and routinely issues security alerts surrounding elections, health conditions, and extreme weather, ensuring U.S. citizens have information that helps inform travel plans. End of quote. In the previous alert dated 2nd of August, the embassy had stated that it had imposed movement restrictions on personnel in Kisumu. Kisumu Governor Professor Anyang' Nyong'o has, however, faulted the advisory.
All right, the Cabinet Secretary, the Ministry of Information Communication Technology, ICT, that is Joe Musheru, has assured Kenyans that the government has no plans to shut off or shut down the internet during the anticipated Tuesday election. Speaking during a breakfast meeting with the Kenya Editors Guild, CS Musheru added that the government will maintain democracy during and after election. He further reiterated that his ministry will collaborate with the Ministry of Interior to uphold the communications and make sure that they are not disrupted, especially in tallying centers.
Fact-checking, misinformation and disinformation. I'd like to know who is in the room, so we'll do quick introductions and then I'll invite the...
GlorIa and editor
Good morning, Daniel Dabo from Safaricom.
Led us to shutting down. So as the president has stated, there is no reason to then shut down the internet during this election period. I think we enjoy a very democratic space and people, yes, make a lot of statements that sometimes are not true and sometimes insults, you know, things that we don't even, they're unprintable and so on. But we've made that commitment. Your president was earlier asking me about the comments on NCIC and shutting down the Facebook platform. I made a comment and a statement that as government, we are committed to the freedom of press. The same was reiterated by the Interior Minister, our CS, Fred Matiang'i, because that is our position as government. We are not going to or planning to shut down any media. But if we have a security issue, a national security issue, that becomes a different story. But for now, I don't think there's anything that we are anticipating that would lead to that kind of action.
The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions has launched a call center for Kenyans to report election offences in what civil society groups have termed as a game changer in taming poll violations. Director of Public Prosecutions Nordin Haji said the call center will serve as a deterrent to election violence and other offences which will be prosecuted in real time. Evidence gathered by the call center will be used, that is, in court during prosecutions, as TV47's Apollo Kamau reports.
The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, alarmed by the ongoing charged campaigns laced with a spike in hate speech, has moved in to tame election violence and related offences by launching an election call center where Kenyans can report offences in real time. The call center will not only assist the police in investigating the offences, but will help in securing evidence for the prosecution, while serving as a major deterrent to those who may want to commit crimes.
Whatever information we'll have here will be used in Kenyan courts or tribunals, or the ICJ if it has to, or other international courts. And we are preparing ourselves for that eventuality. So this will be a very important tool to allow us to be effective in discharging our mandate and in ensuring that we deliver a peaceful, free and fair election.
Kenyans reporting election offences on election day can use toll-free numbers 080 072 3377 or 254 110 939 802. According to the DPP, those that give evidence will be protected as stipulated in the Witness Protection Act. The call center, to be manned by 8 people, is a mapping tool which will give information on key hotspots, the name of the offences, the prosecution team, and whether the matter has been resolved.
We will need witnesses. We will need to know where and what is happening. And anonymity, we have what we call the Witness Protection Agency that we will call upon, and they are part of our partners in this.
With the 2007-2008 post-poll violence still fresh in the minds of Kenyans, the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and civil society groups have termed the Election Call Center a game changer in deterring election violence.
And this Elections Call Center
is an important resource and tool to be able to support responses and follow-up to reports of electoral offences, including human rights violations and hate speech.
And everybody has the right to vote in an environment that is free of intimidation, that is free of violence, and is free of bribery.
Ni hatua nzuri. Na kama tunavyojua, mara nyingi watu walioko nje ya Nairobi husahaulika. Mara nyingi huwa hawawezi kufikia.
The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions has deployed 200 prosecutors for next week's general election. Apul Kamau, TV47.
Meanwhile, the electoral body IEBC says no presidential ballot papers have been distributed, even as the distribution of the other elective position ballot papers stands at 60%. The poll agency has stated that the distribution exercise will be complete by the 6th of August, 3 days before the fast approaching 9th August general polls. TV47's Moigi William with more on the election preparations.
Presidential ballot papers will be the last election materials to be distributed across all the 47 counties, with the exercise set to begin on the 5th of August. The last batch of ballot papers is expected to land in the country Wednesday evening.
That we started distributing ballot papers on 1st of August at around 12 o'clock. As you can remember, we received the first bunch of ballot papers on the 7th of July, and since that time, ballot papers have been arriving from our printers in Greece.
According to IEBC, returning officers in 216 constituencies across 35 counties have received ballot papers as election preparations enter their final stretch. 364 pallets of gubernatorial ballot papers have been distributed, with 368 pallets of senatorial ballot papers, 410 pallets for the women representative position, 439 pallets for the member of parliament, and 439 pallets for member of county assembly ballot papers.
90% of them have already been distributed to the various constituencies in the country, and they are being received there by our returning officers at the constituencies.
The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has further stated that 90% of non-strategic materials have been distributed to various areas across the nation, with 700 million Kenya shillings set aside for the whole exercise, which commenced on the 7th of July.
So, as of now, we have not distributed any presidential ballot papers, and you are still receiving. The last bunch is supposed to arrive this evening.
However, the poll agency has noted that in some regions, due to security concerns, they will airlift election materials such as Mandera, Lamu, Wajir, Garissa and Turkana.
So these areas is whereby it may be difficult going by road because of the security situation in that area to deliver the materials by road. That is why we have opted for that kind of a facility.
According to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, the distribution of election materials now stand at 60%, with the distribution of presidential ballot papers set to begin on the 5th of August before the conclusion of this particular exercise on the 6th of August. Moige William, TV47, Nairobi.
The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, insists that the manual register will only be used in instances where the KIEMS kits fail completely and there is no possibility of repair or replacement. IEBC also says claims by Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance that 3,000 KIEMS kits are missing is not only false but misleading. In a response to questions raised by Azimio la Umoja and the Kenya Kwanza Alliance, IEBC says 3,000 kits marked as missing by the Auditor General are BVR kits used to register voters and not the KIEMS kits used to identify voters.
In a 10-page document containing responses by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission (IEBC) on questions raised by presidential candidates, their agents and political alliances, the Commission has dispelled rumors that there are ungazetted polling stations. IEBC says the polling stations have been gazetted in 2 gazette notices dated the 1st and 26th of July this year, and there is a total of 46,229 polling stations spread out across the country. On the question of addressing discrepancies that may arise in results captured in Form 34A that will be posted at the polling station, Form 34A transmitted electronically to the tallying center, and Form 34A to be availed to the agents, IEBC
Azimio and Kenya presidential hopeful Raila Odinga led his campaigns in the western region, traversing counties of Kakamega, Busia and Bungoma. And as Violet Auma reports, Raila has reiterated he will revive the economy if elected the 5th president.
Barely a month after Azimio won Kenya presidential hopeful Raila Odinga and his Azimio brigade held a rally at Buhungu Stadium, the team was yet again in Western Kenya, holding rallies in Bungoma, Busia and Kakamega counties in a bid to secure the region's votes that has been considered Odinga's stronghold.
Abantu befwe mrembe. Mpango hapa ni wa Raila Amolo Odinga peke yake. Nasema uongo? Unajua wale wa jamaa walikuja nikapunga hii stadium.
Tukianguka tutaenda kwa shimo, hatutaweza kutoka upesi. Lakini tukienda mahali inayofaa, nchi yetu itainuka kiuchumi, kimaendeleo.
With 5 days remaining for Kenyans to go to the ballot August 9th, the leaders gave their last shot to the Mulembe nation, urging them to rally behind Odinga as it has been in the past.
Hii uchaguzi ambayo inakuja, tuko pande hii ni kama usiku na mchana. Ukienda kushoto, unaenda kwa ufisadi. Ukienda kulia, unaenda kwa ukombozi.
Odinga and Karua slammed their opponents for not being genuine with their promises to Kenyans.
Ahadi ya mdomo tupu ni ahadi ya mfisadi sugu.
The two promised to liberate Kenyans from shackles of poverty, tough economic times and fight corruption if given opportunity to lead the country.
Bila kumaliza ufisadi, hata kama ufanye nini, uweze kumaliza hawa madui matatu. Kwa sababu gani? Wewe unafanya juhudi pande hii, unajenga pande hii, nenda bomoka pande hii.
Mpatie baba na mama kura. Hizo panya roots za kuchukua pesa tufunge mara moja.
The Azimio team challenged their opponents to come out clean on matters corruption. They have also called for peace during campaigns and after August polls.
Tumesema tunataka hii kampeni iishe kwa njia ya amani. Kuna wengine kule bonde la Ufa wameanza kutoa vitisho dhidi ya watu wengine ambao wanaishi huko.
Raila was accompanied by a host of leaders affiliated to Azimio One Kenya, among them COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli, Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya and his Vihiga counterpart Wilbur Otichilo.
Jamaa akaanza kulia tu, macho ikaanza kutiririka machozi. Mimi nataka kuambia yeye, hiyo machozi ni kidogo. Tarehe 10 utalia zaidi mpaka ujaze ndo.
Uhuru hayuko kwa ballot. Wawache kurusha mishale kwa rais anastaafu next week. Na wawache kusema tumetumwa na rais. Tumetumwa na rais au na nyinyi?
Violet Auma, TV47, Kakamega.
Kenya Kwanza Alliance flag bearer and Deputy President William Ruto now seem to have changed his tactics in wooing Mount Kenya region, toning down attacks against his boss, President Uhuru Kenyatta. As Mike Agongo reports, the second in command now maintains he has always respected the president and also cautioned his supporters from singing songs to reprimand the head of state.
5 days to August 9th general election. One of the leading horses to the house on the hill, Kenya Kwanza, marching forward to woo different regions daily to solidify their support ahead of next week's D-Day. After months of attacks by his boss, President Uhuru Kenyatta, following his decision to support Azimio la Umoja One Kenya flag bearer Raila Odinga, the DP now seems to play a soft game against the head of state. Speaking in Kirinyaga in Kiambu counties Wednesday, Ruto said he and his team respect the president, but cannot agree with his decision to back former opposition leader Raila Odinga as his successor.
Tangu jamaa wa kitendawili aingie kwa serikali yetu, kabla ya handshake, bei ya unga ilikuwa 90 bob. Leo watu wa handshake wamesukuma bei ya unga mpaka 230.
While lobbying for support in Thika, Ruto told the residents he has never disrespected the president, contrary to what Kenyans have been made to believe.
Unajua huyu mtu wa kitendawili amedanganywa. Ati ameambiwa ati kura itapigwa na deep state. Ati na ingine inaitwa system. Ati na machief na wengine. Ati nyinyi wa Kenya wapigaji kura, ati you don't matter. Lakini si nyinyi ndio mtaamua.
At some instance holding his supporters brief when they attempted to sing songs attributed to rebuke his boss. Ruto said it was regrettable that president has been made to believe that he and his Kenya Kwanza brigade are evil, yet they have always been supporting him.
We are telling our Azimio friends, they must stop abusing public officers. They must stop abusing public officials. Public officials are complaining that they are being forced to undermine the election, to bribe voters, to sabotage this election because the Kitendawili man knows very well that we cannot win this election free and fair.
His running mate Rigathi Gachagua told national administrators not to be misled by the senior state officers to advance the interests of particular political camps that must remain neutral and serve all Kenyans.
Chiefs are not election officials. They have no role within the polling station. Their work in the polling station is for IEBC officials, agents for candidates, and the police officers. Hawa machief wakuja wapige kura waende nyumbani. Na kazi ya chief, kazi ya DO, kazi ya DC, apige kura aende nyumbani. Hakuna chief atakaa kwa kituo cha kupiga kura.
Ruto's allies now saying the real opinion polls was set for August 9. They urged Kenyans not to be swayed by polls released by firms they described as sponsored by interested parties.
Tunaapia hao fake pollsters, hata mtoe polls hata parawa. Next week huyo mzee tunamsafirisha. Hata mwaka wa 2017 walitoa ati Uhuru na Ruto walikuwa na 38%. Walikuwa wameweka huyo mzee ako na 54. Mimi nataka kusema opinion poll ni nyinyi, si ndio? Nyinyi mmeulizwa maswali. Kuna mtu ameuliza maswali. Tukipiga hesabu yetu tunajua ya kwamba mbele iko sawa na William Samoei Ruto. Mbele iko sawa na William Samoei Ruto.
Asante. After traversing Mount Kenya region for 2 days, Deputy President William Ruto will now be heading to Coastal Region Thursday before clutching a final rally in Nairobi County Saturday. Mike Kagongo, TV 47, Kemende in Kiambu County.
With President Uhuru Kenyatta tenure coming to an end, Kenyans shared a brief insight on his journey with his deputy William Ruto, citing that he is a man eternally propelled by selfish interest and thus unfit to be president. Muthoni Maina has more.
With 5 days to the Tuesday polls, President Uhuru Kenyatta has yet again hit out at his deputy, William Ruto, terming him as a man who is inclined on self-interests. The head of state, who has been campaigning against Ruto for the last few days, says voting for Ruto will be making the wrong choice for the country's head of state.
Lakini ukiwa unafika pale karibu mnaendelea, unaangalia nyuma, unaona kiti ya nyuma imerushwa nje na kuna mwingine ameishika huko, unamuuliza passenger ndio huyo ameporwa mali. Hai mnaendelea, gurudumu imeshuka, unamuuliza wewe fanya repair. Badala ya kufanya repair ameenda na hiyo gurudumu ameenda kuuzia mwingine, kuweka kwa gari lingine.
Speaking at State Lodge with an array of leaders in Kisii, President Kenyatta, in reference to last week's presidential debate, castigated Ruto's response on the terms that led to the turning over of a new leaf, absorbing new appointees to his administration in the second term.
Na akajibu akasema, ni mshenzi peke yake hawezi kubadilisha fikira. Mimi nikapiga makofi sana, nikasema hiyo ni point. Hiyo ni point mzuri sana. Kwa sababu ni kweli, ni mshenzi peke yake hawezi kubadilisha fikira. So hata mimi nimebadilisha fikira kwa sababu mimi pia sio mshenzi.
Same time, Uhuru commended Interior CS Fred Matiang'i on taking over Ruto's wheel and carrying on the assigned duties without hitches.
Kutoka wakati niliweka huyu ndugu yangu huyu Matiang'i kuwa chairman, mikutano inaendelea na sio mikutano ya kuuliza nani anapatiwa contract, ni mikutano ya kuuliza kazi hii imefika wapi na itamalizika siku gani ndio rais akuja afungue.
These as he praised the upward trajectory implemented by the handshake with the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga.
Sasa hiyo handshake imeleta shida, imeleta sijui nini, hakuna kazi inaendelea. Jameni, tumeweza kuyafanya mara 3 yale tulikuwa tunafanya wakati gurudumu zilikuwa zinangolewa.
Muthoni Maina, TV47.
Well, Muthoni, thank you so much for that. We now get into a different conversation as we loop in the guests of the day. They'll be joining us, ready set on studio for these very conversations. I hope that you are set as well to interact with us. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela at TV47K. In studio, we have GlorIa Orwoba, youth policy analyst, as well as a governance, leadership and management expert. That is Mheshimiwa Philip Kisia. Thank you so much for finding time, GlorIa.
Good morning.
Barack sends his apologies. Good morning. He says he won't be able to make it this morning. He was supposed to be with us, and therefore we respect that and, proceed. All the same, the show must continue. Good morning.
The show must go on.
You well?
Yes.
You've been well, kabisa, sindio?
We've been well busy.
Last laps of politics?
Last laps. Kukaza tu hiyo, the loose ends.
How does it look?
We are ready.
Why do you argue? Well, loose ends. Which are these ones?
Loose ends. Last minute hitches.
Last minute. The hitches are evident.
The environment is dynamic, so you can't say that the preparations we have today are enough. Every day something has to, you have to keep tightening the knots, the loose ends.
Yes.
Yeah.
They would say on this side that some have sensed defeat and therefore they've started talking in directions that really do not appear so good. Some have sensed defeat and therefore are trying to hit out at IEBC. Loose ends, how is it for Azimio?
I mean, the future is looking very bright.
Okay.
As you can see from the 3 pollsters who have released their results in the last 48 or 72 hours. There is a clear lead of about 7.7%. That's 8%. So we're happy, and we urge the country to remain calm. Mbele iko sawa.
All right, well, Mbele iko sawa. I do not know whether Mbele iko sawa for you. Change of tone for a moment. It's been about hitting President Uhuru Kenyatta, but yesterday we see Deputy President William Ruto, going a little bit easy on the president. He says, well, we have respected you all through, and therefore this does not change on this very last hour. Perhaps a way of just telling the people of the mountain that it's all right. We appreciate that person who's your kingpin and therefore cannot go against the interests of the people of the mountain, because they say if he hits hard on them, then as well they're going to give him a protest vote because you do not speak ill of our son and you expect for us to vote for you.
I don't think that has been the case, by the way. If there's anyone who has really put out the respect, utmost respect for the president, it is actually the Deputy President, William Ruto. And it has never been about the president, actually. He's not a candidate. He's not vying to be the president again. He's not a candidate. And it has actually never been about him. But the fact that he has insisted to play an active role as the Azimio chairman, Azimio is a political party.
Yeah.
I think Kenyans almost forget. Azimio is actually a political party. and it has fielded one candidate, that is Raila Amolo Odinga. And the chair of that political party is Uhuru Kenyatta. And the fact that he is the chair of the political party that has fielded, let's say, the only worthy competitor in this presidential race that is, going against William Ruto, then he has put himself in the middle of the succession politics of 2022. But it's not about him. He's the chair. So by virtue of being the chair and actively using the instruments under him, as the chair of Azimio, and sometimes the areas become grey because he's the chair of Azimio, but he's still, for instance, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He's still, for instance, the president who still, runs the cabinet, which still controls, the police force. So somehow he ends up being at the center of everything. And because he has chosen not to retire respectfully and just exit the stage of politics, then somehow he gets muddied into this, let's say, competition between Raila Odinga and William Ruto. And by virtue of that, we, in fact, as Kenya Kwanza, when we respond to Uhuru Kenyatta, we don't respond to him as a presidential candidate or as a president. We respond to him as the chair of Azimio, and we respond to him as the campaign manager of Azimio. So you can imagine our campaign manager, for instance, we have 3 different elements of our campaign manager within the party, in the presidential secretariat. Myself, I sit as a member of the presidential secretariat. So you can imagine when we are responding to Uhuru Kenyatta as a campaign manager, we are not responding to him as the president.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how he...
So this has got nothing to do with him as the president and everything.
If he was not the Azimio chair, and if he was not the campaign manager for Azimio, we would have no business with Uhuru Kenyatta. In fact, we would not be discussing him. But he's the chair of Azimio, and he's the campaign manager, and by extension, because he has a lot of instruments under him as the president, which he is actually abusing and using for the benefit of his party, Azimio, then we are no longer looking at him as the president. We are, in fact, as GlorIa Orwoba, I am almost at par with a presidential campaign manager of the other side, because I am like second in the presidential campaign secretariat of William Ruto. So ni kama amejishusha chini, sasa tukakuwa almost
interesting.
In the same
Let's take
level.
a short break and then we get to hear the views of Mheshimiwa right here.
The home of untold stories. Usiyakubalie maumivu ya misuli kukatiza ratiba yako. Kaluma Pain Balm ni dawa ya kusugua iliyotengenezwa kutoka kwa miche maalum ili kutuliza maumivu ya misuli. Kaluma Pain Balm. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
At Streisand School of Medical Health Science and Technology, we prepare the change makers of tomorrow by training them in theater technology, medical engineering, science laboratory and health records, applied biology, environmental health science, nutrition and dietetics, ICT, counseling psychology, and many more. Enroll with us today and take a certificate or diploma course. Visit our campuses in Juja, Nairobi West, Kisumu, and Homa Bay and get your career going.
The new Kasarani Sportsview Hotel is a state-of-the-art hotel located along Isipa Road off the modern Thika Superhighway. Enjoy well-equipped comfortable halls and boardrooms accommodating up to 1,000 people. We have elegant, spacious and well-appointed rooms with several types to choose from to meet your needs. Feast on well-marinated nyama choma at the Nyama Choma Ranch and a variety of other a la carte and buffet options. Our health club consists of the gym, steam bath, sauna, aerobics and swimming. Kids' activities include a bouncing castle, train, swings, trampolines, among others. Bring to life the event of your dreams at our beautiful events gardens with a capacity of up to 3,000 people. For more information, call us on 0111024700. The new Kasarani Sportsview Hotel. Country tranquility in the city.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need
of untold stories.
In studio, GlorIa Orwoba as well as Mheshimiwa Philip Kisia. And so, Mheshimiwa, it's been back and forth between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy. Why? We do not know. As late as yesterday, President Uhuru Kenyatta, kimafumbo, as they would say in Swahili, was speaking about his reign with his deputy and the fact that really his deputy was not, determined to make them successfully manage, their legacy. And today, we speak of his legacy and what it is that he leaves behind. This very last hour, we have seen that he has quite a tight schedule, commissioning projects, here and there, doing different things as he's about to exit the stage. But then again, his deputy taking a lower tone yesterday, saying that, the president has always been my friend and therefore it's not at this hour that we intend to engage him. But I mean, after the damage has been done.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Linda.
Yes.
Good morning, Gloria.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm well.
You've not had a chance to speak?
I said hi to him when I came in.
Okay, well,
but
show, yeah?
I've never known that I've been sitting next to an extremely powerful woman.
Yes.
In the Azimio hierarchy.
Yes.
Not Azimio.
In the Kenya Kwanza
hierarchy. Yes. I just learned that as
actually
well.
She's number 2.
Yes.
Please, if you ever ascend to power, remember us.
Niwakumbuke.
Remember us. But let me say this.
Yeah.
When you are a head of state, your roles are clearly defined in the Constitution.
Right.
But then being a head of state does not stop you being a politician. You remain a political animal. President Barack Obama, who was the 44th or 43rd president of the Republic, the United States, the most powerful nation on earth. He, even when he was exiting office, campaigned for his candidate.
Yeah.
Okay? Because when you are in an office, of course, you would want your programs to be carried on. You would not want somebody who will come in and take what I call in management the zero approach mentality to management. A man who believes in starting from zero. Okay? Because management is about building the blocks. You build on the blocks. That there was somebody before you, even if on a scale of 10 you are giving him 5, you start building from 5 and not from 0. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta, even if he is campaigning for his preferred presidential candidate, the 5th, Raila Odinga, he has a constitutional right as a Kenyan to campaign for whoever he thinks is suitable to take up that mandate. Okay? So you cannot divorce yourself from succession politics just because you're a sitting head of state. Because you're still a Kenyan and you have constitutional right to express yourself in whatever manner. And I can say that it has been extremely sad to see the insults that have come from the KK side.
Not both quarters?
KK side towards the head of state. Because even if you don't agree with somebody, you must respect that office. Because one day, maybe one day in the future, maybe 15 years from today, my friend William will be the head of state. You never know what God has planned.
Sure,
I'm saying 15 years. Today. Listen, you had your moment, please. Learn to listen.
5 days.
Learn to listen. And my sister Gloria. If it is God wills maybe 15 years from today, my friend William will be president. And the same insults, you know, he's throwing against his good friend, Uhuru Kenyatta. Maybe the same insults that may be thrown again. I remember very well when the late Mzee Moi was exiting, and the amount of insults that we threw towards that old man, and the way we treated him when he was exiting. And I said to myself, the way I was raised, this is a curse.
But wait a minute.
So I'm not saying that there will be any curse this time round.
But we're asking.
But I'm saying that we must, even as we campaign, there must be some level of decorum and civility. You know, that's what we're looking for.
Is that what the president showcases?
Sorry?
Is that what the president is showcasing today?
No,
is there any essence of civility?
You know, I mean, there is lack of decorum and lack of civility, lack of culture. You know, when you are occupying some political space or some leadership space, you know, those three components are necessary, at least to that person who either is occupying the space or who aspires to occupy that space. So, and again, you brought in the issue of Central Province. Yeah? You know, I'm their relative. Okay. I'm a relative to these people.
All right.
And if you don't know these people are very serious and they're very clever.
All right.
There's two things they know that other communities have never understood. They appreciate power. Okay? And they know what resources mean to their community. They have never been out of power. Even during Moi's time, they were still in power. Okay? Because they know and they understand and they appreciate. And when you see now, although it's a bit too late, my friend, His Excellency the Deputy President, toning down, he has seen the numbers shifting. And I can tell you that community can shift within 48 hours.
Is it, yeah?
Watch this space.
If you try to hit their own.
Watch the space, I'm telling you. They understand power.
And therefore, in this
case,
they
understand resources.
They will be shifting gears because of the fact that they feel
you,
like
you know, you know, I'm telling you, these are my relatives. And they would not want to be on the losing side.
Okay.
Yes, I know them. And I'm much older than the two of you. I can tell you. And they're my relatives. I understand them. They're my relatives. They have never been out of power. They will never be out of power.
And so in this case,
and I can tell you, you wait until the votes are counted.
GlorIa.
You know, I'm wondering whether my co-panelist is in this country, this one where we are in today, whether he's in the same Mount Kenya that I just came from 2 days ago. Mount Kenya is locked. And yes, I agree with him. They understand where power is and they respect power and they follow power. That is why they are with Kenya Kwanza. As a matter of fact, to some extent, there is such panic with Azimio because, you know, Azimio thought that because they have a sitting president endorsing their candidate, that of course there will be a system, that there will be a deep state that now they have discovered is very shallow. Yeah. It's not that there's nothing there. The system which they have been trying all manner of ways to, you know, try and prepare to rig the election, and they are finding out that tuko chonjo. When something appears, you know, we are there to say we are not going to follow this or this must be done. You know, we are literally guarding the William Ruto vote. And the panic that is in Azimio is so bad that their own senior politicians have started spreading fake news, like the video that Joho posted, which was actually an extraction of a video where William Ruto was spreading peace, trying to say that the region respects all tribes and that all tribes should be living there peacefully, and, you know, trying to push the peace message. They went, extracted the video, edited it to look as if William Ruto was actually saying that Kikuyus are not welcome there. That is the kind of panic that Azimio has, that they are now resorting to fake news. The other kind of panic they have is that they have realized, really, they are not going to be able to rig this election easily. Remember the issue of let's use the manual register. We squashed that and said until all the KIMS kit actually fail is when we will resort. And there's at least 2 backup KIMS kits in every polling center. So, you know, by the time we cannot identify you with all 3 or 4 KIMS kits that are available, really, there has to be a huge problem. So you will see that IEBC's preparedness in terms of the KIMS kits, they are ready, in terms of the biometrics, you know. So, tumefunga all zile shume zote walikuwa nafikiria watarig. And, you know, was it last week or this week when suddenly, mysteriously, there were letters or is it pamphlets that were, you know, seen in Rift Valley, basically trying to incite fear and telling these other communities, these other tribes, like the Kikuyus, that, you know, they must move before the election. We know very well that those pamphlets were not spread by politicians even, you know. That was abuse of the state machinery that is under control of the president and all. Yes. So
why would you argue that?
The Azimio chair
and you know,
the Azimio chair is leading the panic, because whatever he thought he could deliver and promise to the candidate, the Azimio candidate, he has realized it's going to be impossible. And they've actually realized that at this point, if you have not convinced the voter that, listen, you need to go into the booth, you need to take the papers, you need to vote for Raila Odinga, which they have not. Okay. They thought they were going to have all manner of, let me say, techniques to rig the election by either stuffing boxes or by, you know, using the manual register so that you can have the clerk who's sitting there just voting for all these people who never showed up. That one we've dealt with. Or they thought that they were actually going to cause chaos and violence in the William Ruto strongholds, so that now, you know, the voter turnout has decreased. That one we have also dealt with, and actually, as at yesterday, even our deputy, our running mate, Gachagua, spoke to Kibicho and said, we are watching you and we are seeing, and we do not want you to cause all this violence or this incitement. So,
let me,
GlorIa, yes.
At the end of the day, what it is that it's 5 days. And actually, campaigns end on 6th, and today is 4th. So you have 2 days to convince the electorate. We know that at the very maximum, Raila Odinga can only do 2 rallies a day.
Okay.
So even if he was now to convince the remaining something like 3 million, 4 million that have not been convinced, he cannot do it in 2 days. So they better pray, you know. They better pray.
And I mean, yes, as you respond, Shimiwa, first of all, how much of you know, support does the president then bestow to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga's bid? If you understand these people, they will tell you that they've also been disappointed by how it is that the president has managed, you know, matters in the country that then would cut across and go all the way to this, you know, region. And they'll tell you that they have showcased before the aspect of, you know, protesting against his lead. We have seen them pulling the protest votes if the Kiamba saga or the Kiamba by-elections, this one's in Georgia, are anything to go by. And therefore, in this case, don't you think then he's going to warrant that protest vote that will go against the Azimio candidate, as GlorIa would argue?
You know, let me, before I comment on what you've said,
yeah,
I'm also again surprised. I didn't know. I'm knowing many things today, that GlorIa and his team are actually in charge of IEBC. So she was talking about, we have corrected this, we have corrected. She's not saying that we have spoken to IEBC and they have taken action. We have done this, we have done this. But anyway, now you're coming out clean. But again, you see, why do you interject before even?
No, because it's
come
flawed.
on. You want me to leave this platform for you?
It's flawed. If
please learn to listen. No, learn to listen.
But
you know, even some of us can be rough. Learn to listen. So let us look at. There's another. She talked about. I don't know. We're here to talk about legacy, but let me deal with the issues that she has raised. You know, if she is aware. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm sure she's not one. But if you look at Regulation 61, subsection 4 of 2012, it addresses how elections should be held. I think the emphasis is whether the elections will be held electronically or manually. What is important is that the elections must be free, fair, accountable, and verifiable. Okay? So that, what we talk about is dealt with in Regulation 64, subsection 1 of 2012. Now, let's get back to the issue of a central province. Okay? Where I have my relatives, because they're my relatives. 6 months ago,
yeah.
And when you want to understand that these people understand and appreciate power, 6 months ago, Raila was below 10% in Central Province. That is the time the other team was celebrating. And they were saying that Central is under lock. Okay? Now they have discovered that these relatives of mine who are extremely smart, they are saying, wait a minute, this other side could be having a good story for us. Okay? And if you look at all the opinion polls, which now, 6 months ago or before, our competitors were so happy making reference to the same opinion polls, the same opinion companies. They were extremely happy. Now the same companies, there are 2 or 3 of them who are extremely credible, who had rated them very highly 6-8 months ago, 1 year ago, are now saying that there's a shift in Mount Kenya. That from the 8% we had 6 months ago,
right
now Raila Amolo Odinga is averaging 25%.
And you trust this?
They undecided. Yes, they undecided. They also trusted them 8 months ago, 6 months ago.
Okay.
The undecided vote in Central Province is at about 11%. That's the vote that she's talking about.
Yeah.
So, yes, we accept the results as they are, that William Samoei Ruto has a high percentage of votes in Central Province, but is not as high as it was 6-8 months ago. Now, what we intend to do, of course, as she has said rightfully, and asking for votes, there are many ways of asking for votes. There are many ways of skinning a cat. You don't have to be on a track making noise. You deploy different strategies. Otherwise, you'll have to be in 47 counties at any given time. So those 11% votes that we have in Central Province who are undecided is what we shall go for in the next 48 to 72 hours. Now, she also talked about, deep state, I don't know, state machinery.
Yes.
I don't know. How can the deep state vote? I agree with them. The people who are going to vote are Kenyans. It's not the deep state. What is the deep state that we keep on referring to? What is the state machinery that we keep on referring to? The state machinery does not have votes. Deep state does not have votes. The people who have votes are Kenyans like you and me.
But they
and from the opinion
vote.
And from the opinion polls that have been carried out by the same companies that were being praised by the other side are now indicating, all of them have said that there's a lead, a clear lead of 8%. We have about 6% or so undecided, or 7% undecided voters. And even though, and you see, when you say undecided, on 9th, there will be no undecided vote. All of them will decide. And those who don't decide will stay at home. So they will not be useful to Kenya Kwanza, neither will they be useful to our side. They will stay at home. But I can tell you, knowing especially people from my relative side, okay, worst case scenario, they'll give half on one side and half on their side, and we shall be very happy.
Half is enough for you.
Half is more than enough for us. They can pick up the other half, but I can tell you that we are happy with the progress that has been made in Central Kenya. We were at 8%, now we are at 25%. I think that trajectory in 6 months is formidable, is commendable, and I urge our teams who are going around now to retreat back to their villages and get us the 11% vote that we're looking for.
And you think that GlorIa is not in order when she argues that there's been some interference, involvement, and we all understand that in as much as the vote is with the people, reality is that there are factors that would influence how they end up voting. And what it is that we see today should highly be, condemned. But all the same, we also ask, who could be this person that propagates all this kind of hate?
Tell me, Nani Linda, when you say that there could be, what is this there could be? Why can't you be more specific? Where has there been interference?
Going right around.
You see, if you have any evidence to the effect, you have any evidence to the effect that somebody is likely to cause chaos during this electioneering time, I think it is incumbent upon that person or persons to report to the nearest police station, and action will be taken.
What is this?
And in any event, we also have international election observers here. And I don't think that Uhuru Kenyatta would want, as part of his legacy, to have a chaotic elections.
All right. One of the individuals who has worked in State House, has come out to highlight this and say that these plans were there initially, and reminds President Uhuru Kenyatta to be careful, because if he is not careful, then indeed the IEBC will be here again. And so you think that is misplaced, especially knowing very well that he has been at the heart of the operations in State House?
First of all,
was it to me or to...
let's allow GlorIa come in and then we bring it to you. Yes.
I want to remind any guests who attend these shows that you're going for a conversation, more like a debate. You're not going to sit somewhere and have monologues, or they call them soliloquies, where you just talk by yourself.
And then somebody else comes in.
It's a conversation. And conversations, when you see Umaingia, you have interjections. Interjections are very respectful. But I've realized that when I sit in any panel, because people are actually afraid of my factual interjections, they get very afraid when I interject. So they try to say, well, you've had your chance to talk, it's a conversation. You're allowed to interject. Normal people who go for...
And I think that is home.
No, I wanted to keep quiet so that I can say it, because if I interjected, he would be afraid of me saying that. So I want to put it out. Don't be afraid. Me, if you interject when I'm talking, I'm not afraid. Interject, put your fact, and then we proceed. Don't be afraid of facts.
Make your point.
All right.
Make your point.
So, no, my point is there.
Make your point.
They're very factual.
I'm almost telling you to wait until you're done. Okay.
No.
Let them make a point.
You see, I'm okay with that.
Let them make a point.
Yes.
Now, when
we didn't come for lectures. Let them make a point.
When that's a conversation, it's not a lecture.
Proceed, GlorIa.
When you come to the issue of polls, I mean, for as far back as we have started polling, I have not seen any of the Kenya Kwanza team sit here and say, the polls have actually shown we are ahead. Number one, we have never believed in these polls, even when the polls were dictating that William Ruto was way ahead. We didn't believe in it, and we were silent on it, because we knew that, number one, those farms were actually trying to rope us in to be able to start doing, it's a cash cow. Show them that they're ahead, go to them, ask them, if you want to keep the lead, this is the money that you have to give. I have been a candidate for Bobasi constituency member of parliament. I have had representatives of all those farms actually send people to me as a candidate asking for money, saying that if you want to feature in our polls, even within whatever percentage, this is the amount. If you want to lead, this is the amount. If you want to showcase that there is a stable growth going up, this is the amount. And at that time, a lot of the other political parties were actually using those polls to be able to do the negotiated democracy. So they had found a loophole that, our polls are significant to some parties, and some parties are using our polls to be able to tell so-and-so candidate you're weak, shook up because according to this poll. So it's a way of making money. But I'm sitting here in studio and saying, for as far back as William Ruto
GlorIa does not believe in polls.
Started campaigning.
GlorIa does not believe in polls.
From as far back.
But even she could not get nomination in her own party.
From as far back, no. Don't defend me.
I'm not defending you. I'm just saying.
I went for party primaries. I have 5,587 voters who came out to vote for GlorIa Orwoba. I would like to know how many voters he has
who came out to vote for him in whatever capacity.
No, she never got the ticket. But now she's on the nomination list. She's on the nomination list.
Yes. I never got the ticket because I failed at party primaries. Because we at Azimio understand that a competition must have a winner and a loser. We are from the side where our candidate respects that if you lose, you lose. They are from the side that they swear themselves in. So I can understand that it comes from that. Now I wanted to talk about Azimio. No, I want
so it doesn't get you.
But Raila Odinga has sworn himself in.
No, you're saying
Raila Odinga was part of the 82 coup.
I'm just reminding you.
Yeah?
That
he's in Azimio.
Be careful not to say that we at Azimio.
We at Kenya Kwanza have said that respect that we have competitions. Our candidate was even amongst the only people who stood by Uhuru Kenyatta when he lost an election and they had their concession speech. And I understand when someone cannot believe that I went for party primaries and I lost and I accepted. That is what is happening. He can't believe that I accepted the loss. I accepted the loss because asiyekubali kushindwa si mshindani, and we believe that in a competition there must be a loser. So aside from that, we talked about state machinery. Said, what is state machinery? What is instruments of blah blah blah? Okay, let me ask, who are chiefs? Who are administration police? We have seen and we have actually blown the whistle and said, can you stop using the chiefs to try and mobilize voters, to try and ensure that their candidate wins? And Matiang'i himself as the minister has come out and said, I have to meet chiefs.
Yes,
meaning,
he said that.
Meaning our allegations of him meeting the chiefs to begin with are valid.
No, he
and
counters
true.
that.
He countered it and said he must meet the chiefs because those are the people he works with.
But not in bad faith, because the reality, GlorIa, you know very well that in his capacity he must meet.
As Kenya Kwanza, we actually have information that is factual. That in those meetings for the chiefs, in those meetings for now what we are calling state machinery, because you see a chief is supposed to work with the government with other duties, but not to mobilize and make sure a certain political candidate wins whatever election. And we have presented that the chiefs are being misused. There are videos out there of chiefs actually being used during campaign rallies to mobilize. These are things that are factual, and that is what we are saying, stop using the state machinery. That is one way of using it. Okay. Let me ask you another way of using it, and now we are sitting here in a studio. We have complained repeatedly of the biasness within media. Yeah, and because the biggest...
Which bias and she's here?
The biggest...
Which bias and she's here?
Also attended the debate.
The biggest...
Which bias and she's here?
I like when I allow him to interject. Now he actually has a...
Which bias is she here?
The biggest client that you can have as a media house is government. Yeah. And we know very well that some of these media houses have actually been made to believe, if you don't play ball with us, we are not going to advertise in your spaces.
Why would they do that? Why would they do that?
And by the way, even Media Council put out the report on how much coverage Raila Odinga was receiving and how much coverage William Ruto was receiving. So I'm not speaking from the air. These are facts that are out there that are actually recognized from an authority, the Media Council. So there are different ways of state machinery, and I wanted to just demonstrate that these are some of the ways that are there. We are very aware at this moment that there could be, and there is probably a plan to use the police force. For instance, in my area where I come from, how many times have you seen when there is an Azimio rally, there is chaos in Kisii? Why? The sitting governor, Ongwaya, who's a governor, has influence over the police in Kisii.
Do you realize that the DP
so him as his influence?
Do you realize that
while he's battling? I do, and I'm explaining him as the governor with his influence because he is fighting his Arati, who is within the same house. Every time there has been an Azimio rally in Kisii, even when Martha Karua went there was chaos. Because someone has that influence. Someone has that influence to actually use the police force to create all sorts of manner of chaos.
I will not try to counter that. I'll allow for
I'll not even.
After this break.
I think there's nothing to counter. But okay.
Come back on that very
right. Okay.
Despite being visually impaired, He is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
Kaluma Strong hutuliza maumivu ya kichwa, maumivu ya mwili na hata huondoa joto.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
As GlorIa Orwoba, someone says, you know, this as private entities, and therefore that argument could be rendered null and void on basis of the same, because then the government must advertise, should advertise. They have no choice but to spend these budgets, and therefore whether they give it to a certain media or another, they somehow have to do it. So they cannot twist the media.
They have to advertise, but you know, you're not the only media house. So they have options. And if you're not playing ball, you know this. If you're not playing ball, they'll go.
Linda.
As we sum it up on this.
Linda.
Sum it up.
Linda.
Yes.
You know, you've been in media for some time, and I've known you from the time and you're still youthful.
Thank you.
They're looking good today.
Asante.
I know for certain that media houses look for news. Am I right?
Where there's news is where we go.
You go where there's news. You don't go where there's no news because there's nothing to report.
Right.
Okay? So, I mean, that's the basic principle.
That's the basic principle. Kenya Kwanza did not accord as much to report on.
Thank you.
Okay.
So now let's proceed. I think we were here today to talk about the
legacy. The legacy. And I mean, his itinerary, or better yet, his plans are quite tight, President Uhuru Kenyatta, and I think this has been reported on the papers this morning as to just how he is on the last laps, They say final act inside the president's hectic diary. It's going to be tight for him as he seeks to secure the legacy. Just how much can he do in this very last hour before we get into the details of understanding what he has done?
I think, you see, President Uhuru Kenyatta remains the president until the other president is sworn in. Of course, there are limitations constitutionally, what he can do and what he cannot do after 9th of August. But I can tell you that if there's one man, and we all remember our past presidents in different ways, each one of them has left a legacy. Jomo Kenyatta left a legacy, whether you like it or not, there's a legacy. The founding father, he left a peaceful country, handed over at the time of his death, rather. President Moi took over. He did a superb job in the area of education, and he has a legacy, he left a legacy. That's why some of us respect the late President Moi, and he handed over power peacefully. It's part of his legacy. My favorite president, emeritus, Mwai Kibaki, left a huge legacy, a huge impact. And now we have President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, you see, legacy about impact. How have you been able to impact the people that you served? Or when you're gone, what can people remember you for?
You know, this president has had a lot of challenges. In his first term, his administration was riddled with a lot of corruption, and therefore there was not much move. But in his second term, despite the two interferences that caused instability in any administration globally, I think he has been able to sail through. Of course, one of them, you know, was COVID, the COVID pandemic. And Uhuru was able to navigate through successfully, and of course the global recession. But getting back to the legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta, I think the first one, and we shall remember him one day, the issue of ping pong. Okay? People may not want to talk about it. Yeah? From the time we got independence in 1963 up to 9th, we've only had 2 communities. Yeah? Doing a GK. Gema, Kalenjin. Kalenjin, Gema. Gema, Kalenjin. It has been a ping pong.
Yeah.
So Uhuru Kenyatta has been bold enough to tell his people that we live in a community, that it is necessary that we take a break. It is necessary. Okay? Those are conversations that as family we've had. And they say, please, let's take a break. It's painful. I know we have the numbers. I know we account for probably 30% of the vote, but we must build a cohesive society. The other thing, in the same context, is about embracing your enemy, because politics is not about enmity. And there are 2 people that I would want to paraphrase. One is on their side, Mheshimiwa Mandago, and I can tell you, I'll be talking to Baba after this show.
Okay.
He is one person who must be considered for appointment, because he said, you know, Mandago. He has said, don't really, get so worked up.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there'll be one person leading this country. Number 2, as we are fighting here, either in a studio, and shouting horse, okay? After this studio, she'll go to her home, and I'll go to my home and take care of whatever I take care of, right?
Yeah.
The people you're fighting for in the evening, I can tell you, because I've been around for some time, they always meet and talk and have nice dinner over a glass of champagne. So I'm being in this culture of saying, listen, politics is not the end of everything, that we can compete, but after the elections are over, can we come together as one family, as one community, and work towards the progress of this country? Now, those are the soft issues that we can talk about, but let's look at the hard issues.
Let's allow
the hard issues. I'm just concluding in terms of legacy, and I'll get into detail. The infrastructure projects that Uhuru has rolled out, especially in his second term, are unprecedented. From independence to 2013, we built about 10,000 kilometers of roads. In the last few years, he has built 10,500 kilometers of roads. During the late President Moi's time, we never invested in the water infrastructure. President Kibaki started, but now Uhuru has invested in the water infrastructure to a tune of over 800 billion. And forget about Aroro Kimarer, but I mean there's progress in terms of water infrastructure. In terms of power, when Uhuru took over, there were less than, I think, 3 million people now connected to power. Now we are heading to over 6 million people connected to power. We had about 1,300 megawatts of power. Now we have more than 3,000 megawatts of power. If you take the 6,000 that were rolled out into the grid a few weeks ago. And then the other thing is about, territorial integrity. Okay? I think Uhuru has been very bold, that he has protected the territorial integrity of this country. That for the first time, this country has invested enormous resources in our security sector. The ratios, international ratios for police to the population is 450 to, I think, 100,000.
We're still low on that one.
We at 300. We are low, but we are 300. Actually, we have beat the international benchmark. If you look at the machinery, the amount of investment that has gone into motor vehicles, that have gone into equipment for the police, and that is why, probably, in the last few years, you've not heard of a terrorist attack on this country. So these are things that we may take for granted, but there are things that we shall remember these men about. Finally, the issue of housing. I don't know whether you know, but I know that by around 2013, the people who had taken mortgage, the mortgage uptake was about 23,000 Kenyans. Okay? In the last few years, this administration has been able to roll out about 160,000 new units into the market, both in terms of government and the private sector. So, you know, every person who takes leadership, one will take over after 9th.
Yeah.
He or she, I'm sure, no, this time I think there's no she. I'm hoping that in future, that you people will come out and we'll be able to support you.
Yes.
For the time being, the chances of a woman taking over are almost zero. But he who takes over from 9th, I'm sure he's also come up with his own legacies. Yeah.
Okay. GlorIa, and tight diary for President Uhuru Kenyatta as he commissioned projects left, right, and center. He argues that he's been able to achieve, you know, more than his predecessors combined up to this level. He accuses the deputy for frustrating his efforts to, you know, experience this development, or better yet, to have this development for the, you know, obvious reasons of making sure that, you know, as a government, you deliver for your people. What do you make of this, and perhaps to top up to what it is that he says?
I can't compare his administration with previous administrations, obviously, because I don't have the statistics, and some of the previous administration, quite frankly, I was too young to be an analyst. So maybe I need to do my homework on that. But what I can say is, indeed, he has achieved some things. Yeah. And in fact, as Philip Kisia was talking about the projects such as the last mile, talking about the water, I was just smiling to myself, because those were the days when the president actually worked with his deputy. Is it? The things that he achieved when he was, you know,
figures don't lie.
He was in
the 10,000, you know, the 10,500 kilometers of roads. The 10,500 kilometers of roads.
So
65% of them have been rolled out in the last 5 years.
He has not allowed me to put my point out.
They were not there initially.
No, they were there, but they could not be implemented.
Alela, okay, you see how they jump when I bring facts?
Proceed, GlorIa.
I need the people watching to see.
You are protected.
Bring your facts.
No, I'm okay. I want to point out something. I need you guys to see how they jump when I bring out facts. The fact is,
don't look for sympathy.
When he was in sync with the deputy president, things were working and they were delivering on the Big Four agenda, which they had beforehand.
So what stops them working?
When you look at the last mile project, they actually delivered on the last mile project when they were in sync with the deputy president. When you look at the work that we have done in terms of, when I say we, those who support William Ruto and his work, when you look at the work and the delivery and the output, particularly even in the Ministry of Agriculture, in the TVET, when the Big Four agenda was a real agenda that the president actually prioritized, it was when he was in sync with the deputy president. And we know, and Kenyans know, that the moment we went to negotiate with what I personally call political terrorists, you know, because I've said this before, when you always are threatening to use a form of violence to get what you need, you are actually a clear definition of a terrorist. This is why most countries say we don't negotiate with terrorists. But the handshake was a form of negotiating and saying, we really need you to not bring that violence. We really need you to not bring the chaos so that we can work. When the president went to negotiate and did the handshake,
the Big Four agenda ceased to be a priority. As a matter of fact, the moment they did the handshake, a 14-member task force was constituted in now a new project that was called the Building Bridges Initiative, which really was pushing for constitutional reforms and changes in the constitution. So you can see, I love that Philip Kisia has actually put out the output of when the president was working in sync with his deputy, and it is so. They actually achieved much.
GlorIa.
If you can give me time, because I am respectfully giving co-panelists time. If you can give me time to talk about the legacy, as I have given Philip Kisia time to speak about the legacy that he thinks. For me, I want to put it out here. The moment that administration stopped working as the administration that we as Kenyans voted for, because we voted for Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. And then Uhuru Kenyatta subjected us to a person who was in the opposition and said, we are going to put William Ruto kando, we are going to work with Raila Odinga through what I call negotiating with a political terrorist. Then what happened is they moved and shifted gears to another agenda, which technically lost us 3 to 4 years. And while we were losing that 3 to 4 years, we had the pandemic. So what I can say is a legacy that Kenyans are going to remember Uhuru Kenyatta as the president for is that, number one, he is the president, and this one at least I can compare with the past presidents because I've done a little bit of homework. He is the one president that we have had who has actually disobeyed the most court orders. That's the first thing. That is a fact. That is out there. The state officials, the state agencies that have been ordered by the court to do ABCD have actually gone ahead and rejected it, and because he's the person with the full autonomy to and the political goodwill to ensure that they are following the court orders from judiciary, they have ignored his that is the one legacy that he has to carry on his back. The second thing, he's the president that has actually overseen an era where we have had the most corrupt dealings. When we talked about the managed equipment services, when we talk about COVID
I've
billionaires.
listened to him yesterday.
When we talk
he
about...
says he was trying to deal with this and then somebody else pulls them behind.
This president... No. Listen, if we are electing you as the president, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the person with all the autonomy and the instruments of power to deal with anything, then you come and tell us, sasa nitafanya nini? Which he did. He actually came out and said, he said, nitafanya nini? You know, it was like, I am not in a position to do anything. If you as the president who we voted in and gave all the powers to push this country to the next level, can come back to us, the electorate, and say, nitafanya nini? Clearly you have failed. And that's what I'm saying. He will be remembered as a person who actually played an oversight role of the highest level of corruption, including direct murders of Kenyans through the COVID billionaires, who we know are nephews and nieces, who actually some are related.
Well, it's still not clear because...
So,
Linda. GlorIa,
let me execute my point to completion as he has done, not briefly. And I will tell you, the other legacy that we are going to remember Uhuru Kenyatta for is that it is during his era that the cost of living has skyrocketed to the highest, to the extent that we have unga at 230, and I keep reminding the electorate, go and look at who is the owner of Unga Limited. The other 3 weeks ago, we were told that there is now a plan for bringing down the cost of unga. Some companies were put, groups were put on the table to be given this subsidy program. The subsidy program entailed that government, through a mysterious budget that was not passed in parliament, somehow was going to buffer and pay these people so that they could reduce the cost of unga. And I can tell you, 2 weeks later, there is not one shop that where you can get unga at 100 shillings. But Alela, in another 2 or 3 weeks, we are going to be told of the companies who have actually been paid the subsidy money so that they can bring down the cost, yet we have not seen the cost.
Not to expectation.
Another legacy, the final legacy, I was listing the legacies of Uhuru Kenyatta. He is the president that presided over and played an oversight role in auctioning our country through the ports. Auctioning our country through the ports.
Okay.
We have that factually, it is there. In fact, as a matter of, it's a whistleblower who came out in the form of Musalia Mudavadi and told Kenyans exactly what the contract entails. He is that president who we will remember for ensuring that we as Kenyans, especially those in the coast, do not benefit in any way from their resource, which is the port. And finally,
GlorIa, we'll talk about that. And I mean,
finally,
to do that.
The last one that I want to remember as a legacy, and I'm a Kenyan like Raia hapo nje, so I can tell you this is what they remember Uhuru Kenyatta for. He is the president who we shall remember for misleading the electorate by trying to have a project candidate in the name of Raila Odinga, forcing that project candidate down our throats through state machinery such as chiefs, through state machinery such as police. He is that president who we will remember, who does not have enough honor and respect to successfully and just quietly retire. He's the president who will remember, who is trying to take away our right as the electorate and force a candidate down our throat.
Philip Kisia,
that is the legacy.
Politics at play.
No, those are facts, but
those are actual facts.
And I respect.
Yeah.
But you see, when you have challenges in understanding micro and macroeconomic programs and policies, you can say anything. But these are facts. That it is during the second term of Uhuru Kenyatta's administration that 70% of what he has delivered, and I'm happy, she's saying, yeah, it was done together. But it is, during the first term, 30% was delivered. Anything that has been delivered by this administration, 70% has been delivered.
Those are not
70%. Facts. These are facts that we have. You can double check after
those
that.
Are not
I mean,
facts.
The president has articulated that.
The president has also articulated that his administration has dealt with corruption.
Let me take a simple example. I'll take a simple example.
Those are opinions.
I'll take a simple example. And I'm sure, I'm not very good in maths, but out of the 10,500 kilometers of roads that were done, about 3,500 kilometers were done in his first term. The second term, we've had almost 7,000 kilometers of roads. You don't need to be very good in maths to understand that 30% was done in the first term, 70% has been done in the second term. Now, during his second term, okay, despite the COVID pandemic, you can see how Uhuru was able to navigate this country through COVID. At that time, when we started off, we had only one laboratory for testing COVID that had capability, and not 100% capability, because you remember when we started, if you had COVID, your results, your samples were taken and flown to South Africa, and you got results after 5 days. Now we have 95 units that have capacity to test you on COVID, and within hours you have your results.
95 units as opposed to how many units which they stole the money to set up those
stealing,
units.
We're talking about numbers. Yes. We're talking about numbers. The other thing is that within it is within the second term. These are facts again.
No,
which are published.
Ways of covering corruption.
These are facts that are published by international lending agencies.
The same facts
we have moved. These are facts.
Money.
We have moved from position 12 in Africa to being the 6th biggest economy in Africa. From position 12 during the first term to position 6. This has happened in the last 5 years. The other thing, in line with that again, that we as an administration have been able to move our economy from 4.7 trillion to 11 trillion. That is again placing us in position what? Position 6. The other thing that we must also talk about, and these are facts again, you can double check, that in 2021, despite coming out of a pandemic, that we had the highest growth in the real GDP terms. During Kibaki's time, I think the highest was about 8%. In 2021, you can double check, we did about 12%. Now, let me get to the issue of corruption. It is, and I'm happy that my sister GlorIa is so passionate, and she's almost talking hoarse about this issue of corruption.
Yeah.
That it is during the first term of this administration, we had almost 20 mega corruption scandals. In the second term, we can only mention of one.
Oh, no.
Major scandal.
No.
I cannot remember.
Equipment services, which is sitting in the Senate as a report, is a scandal.
I cannot remember.
We are not going to allow it.
But
here is where I take over. We are not going to allow that because
not you take over. We are debating.
But we are not. Those are actual lies.
Now
I have given you a whole scandal that has sat in the Senate report.
It is during the second term.
No.
It is during the second term.
Tell me.
What is this that
it is during the
Alela,
second
now
term.
allow me. Allow me, Alela.
We are not now debating, but it is during the second term.
No, because I also now at this point.
I'm landing. It is during the second term.
We'll come to you, GlorIa,
we completed the LAPSET project. Okay? And this project had been planned since independence.
So what is this that they were doing?
Finally, okay? And we talk about the road infrastructure. The express highway that has been completed, okay? 30% was done during, actually, I don't think anything was done, but it was picked up. This project actually was planned by the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, the express highway. Okay, it was planned.
At an extra amount in comparison to what was initially
let's not talk about them.
You cannot bring a topic and then say forget about the amount. We are actually talking about the amount.
It was during the second tenure that this project has been executed. It is again during this tenure that we have now started dualing Rironi, Mau Summit, Nakuru Road through a PPP project. These are facts.
Hold it, Mheshimiwa. You know, we cannot overlook the questions of monies and corruption.
Alela, can you allow me 30 seconds?
Let me
just 30 seconds.
You're sure 30?
Yes.
Okay.
They are trying to create a narrative that actually does not sell. Even that same expressway that he's talking about, the level of corruption on it is insane that it can actually
and Moses was Tangula in the Senate has mentioned the projections that were there
and the direct beneficiaries,
what we have used today.
Not only, and that's why he's saying forget about the projections, because the devil is in the details. The projections and the amount that we've used today don't even add up, and the beneficiaries of those extra amounts and contracts and whatever, we know which families they come from.
After this short,
the SGR, we still don't have the contract for the SGR.
We still are waiting.
I'm just mentioning it. The port was sold in the second term. Managed equipment services, which is a report sitting at the Senate, where we are still losing billions to beneficiaries of these same families, is there. Uhuru Gardens was not a budgeted project. Suddenly, we spent I don't know how many billions for Uhuru Gardens in there. You know, so I mean, I can go on and on. I'm telling you, it is just because, as I said, the media most of the time has been brought off to silence on these things.
I would counter that.
How come, Alela? How come we're not talking about the scandal of the?
Let my sister take some water.
No.
Please drink some water.
Stories. Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Hii tukatae siasa na ufisadi, tuchague utendakazi na uongozi bora. Hapa kazi tu barani.
Usiyakubalie maumivu ya misuli kukatiza ratiba yako. Kaluma Pain Balm ni dawa ya kusugua iliyotengenezwa kutoka kwa miche maalum ili kutuliza maumivu ya misuli. Kaluma Pain Balm. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
Watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
night things.
Broadcast, GlorIa Orwoba as well as Philip Kisia. And so, Philip, however much you tell us to appreciate this that has been done, it is only fair that as well we question the monies. And I mean, accountability, very, very important. If we are to look at the expressway, definitely you have seen the likes of Wetangula and Senate just articulating what was projected to have been used on this project and what is being used right now. I mean, a huge discrepancy, a huge, trajectory upwards. The SGR, as GlorIa would highly mention, and numerous other projects that we should be celebrating today, courtesy of what we call the legacy trend. I mean, can you comfortably tell Kenyans to just appreciate without questioning?
You see, variations to projects are allowed.
Yeah.
I've been a head of an institution, and I know that that is something that happens. That as you move along, they may need to vary a project for one reason or another. Okay, but again, these are projects that are funded, feasibilities are done, contracts are signed, and when you are varying the amounts, all the partners have to agree. Okay? And again, you must ask yourself, why is the contract being varied? Is it just being varied for nothing? There must be a reason for that particular variation, and the variation has to be justified. Don't forget that even as we exit office, like I exited office, I was there for 36 months, I didn't ask for an extension, that you have institutions that audit you during your tenure and after your tenure. So if there's any wrongdoing in any project, be it Aror and Kimorere Dam, that the Auditor General's office will flag it out. You can be rest assured. It can be yesterday, it be tomorrow, but the red flag would be flagged. So, don't just sit somewhere and think that you can come up with some funny maths and you go scot-free. No. Variations are done, and they're done by professionals. Okay? So I'm not here to defend any variations done, because I don't have the details. I am not a public officer as of now. Neither do I hold any positions in Azimio. I'm a member of Azimio. Unlike my sister, who is number 2, I didn't know I was sitting next to power. So please, if good things come your side, just remember
Once again, please remember Mheshimiwa here. GlorIa, let's for a moment overlook the, the monies, and like Mheshimiwa rightfully puts it, the Auditor General will be on this. I mean, if I told you lucky enough to get, the presidency or to get to power, then we have this commission that you seek to form, addressing the question of state capture. And therefore, Kenyans will have the faith that such you will come to address. Can't we just appreciate what has been done so far without looking at the question of corruption as well, without, hitting so hard on the president on the things that he has failed to do? Is there anything to smile about?
First of all, let me say this. I'm very proud to be in Kenya Kwanza and to be in UDA. I seek such pride in actually publicly stating, for instance, that I'm in the presidential campaign team, that I'm this and that within. I'm proud to be associated with these people. As you can see, on the other side, when you start asking questions, they start saying, I'm not a public officer, I'm not in, wananza unajua mimi siko kwa, last time, I'm in Jubilee, I'm not in ODM. I'm proud to be associated with Kenya Kwanza and to be a member. And that's why I when I speak facts, they just ooze. Let me tell you something about this corruption thing. There were utterances that our presidential candidate said that we would like to form a commission, a public commission of inquiry and for state capture. And it made a lot of people who have been involved in state capture very uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, the first people who came out and said, why should we have a commission? We have judicial systems and this and that. Well, the Azimio fellas, who a few of them are actually involved in that state capture we're talking about, because they're saying we have judicial systems because they know where they have compromised those systems. They know where they've captured those systems. They say, we have the police to deal with criminals. They know where they've captured the police. So when we say that when we come in, we would like to free this country from state capture. So therefore, we want to set up a commission of inquiry for this particular issue. And it's not going to talk about just one or two things, not just the nephews and nieces of the COVID billionaires or whatever, but it's the root of state capture, meaning there are people who have been in offices who are influencing
fixing where the businesses or contracts of government are going to, who are doing business with themselves essentially, because they are government officers and then they have companies that actually do business with government. So it is like they are going from the right pocket to the left pocket. When we say we are going to form a commission of inquiry for this and those people start fidgeting, it is because it is obvious, Alela. For one, certain industries have been monopolized. Yeah. Look at the milk industry. It's been monopolized for a very long time. In fact, I'm glad that at least in the Azimio manifesto, they claim that they are going to have one product, one county, blah, blah, blah. And I truly hope that they will dare, if at all they get a very slim chance, which is almost not going to happen, that they could even dare to go and, for instance, say in Uasin Gishu, all of Rift Valley, we are going to have milk, and see how those who have captured that industry will come out for them, you know. And this is why we have the president actively pushing and almost desperately so, trying to ensure that his project candidate, Raila Odinga, enters. Because if you look at the milk industry, which families are involved there and have monopolized? You go to the oil industry, which family has monopolized? Go to the banking industry. I was going to talk about the leasing of government vehicles. Who won the contract of leasing of government vehicles? Which bank is actually giving what we are calling the M-Shwari and whatever loans? Again, state capture, certain families who own certain interests. If you go to basic things such as manufacturing, go and really follow the route of who is really in charge of substances such as alcohol, ethanol, and whatever. You come back to the same families. You come back to the same owners. You look at Unga Limited. Now we are crying about prices of Unga. Go and look at the shareholders of Unga Limited. And then if you are bright enough, and which Kenyans are the electorate, you will see that Unga Limited constitutes of I don't know how many companies. All companies are owned by the same family.
And so what are you telling us?
So that is state capture, because if you control, if you manage to use your position, for instance, as an example, as a minister or as a government official or as a senior level executive in the cabinet or wherever, if you manage to use your position to actually ensure that within, for instance, the milk industry, every policy that I push or I stop will be in the benefit of my interest, you have captured the state. You have subjected Kenyans to a market that is not competitive. What does that do? We have Unga at 230 because we know who the owners are. We have milk at how much? Because we know who the owners are.
It's almost
we have fuel at how much?
Go for President Uhuru Kenyatta once they are
no.
If they will.
Kenya Kwanza will obviously go for those culprits who've captured the state.
You speak of a specific family.
No, I speak of specific families. So you see,
how many?
No,
Can
listen.
you mention them?
They are not in the commission of inquiry that we are going to set up.
Okay.
We are going to set up the commission of inquiry
that will establish.
That will actually come and say, by the way, have you guys discovered the people who sold the pot is so and so family?
Is it not obvious that Kenya Kwanza will go for
You see, there is nothing to go after President Uhuru Kenyatta. There's nothing. I don't know what people are talking about, but there's nothing. This is just a pipe dream.
So we'll assume
but again, you see, when you come onto a respectable media house like this one, and you talk of companies and you name them, you should be a bit careful. Just,
which companies have I named?
Unga Limited has been here for more than...
Who are the shareholders?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't,
no, it does matter. It does matter. Unga Limited has shareholders. Shareholders have faces. Those faces belong to families.
More than my own years.
Who are the shareholders?
I'll be 60 early next year. Unga Limited was there.
Who are the shareholders?
But let me now talk. Let me now talk about.
Do not throw it.
Let me talk
who
about.
Who are the shareholders of Unga Limited? Now that we are discussing.
Limited
who are the shareholders?
Unga Limited can get back to you. But let me talk about.
No, I'm getting back to you.
Let me talk.
But I am telling you that Unga Limited, the shares were bought by a certain family. What is this?
NCPDA.
The Commission of Inquiry with
Mahindi, Chakula, Obusuma happened the first time, 2 billion. NYS1, and you know people, the architectures of NYS1 happened in what? In the first term, 800 million. NYS2, 9 billion. Aror Kimarel Dam, first term, 23 billion.
Aror Kimarel Dam, now that you said it.
Ministry of Health. Ministry of Health.
Let's talk about
it. We'll come to that.
Ministry of Health, 5 billion, 2016.
And the COVID billionaires also.
Galana Kulalu, wamekula pesa.
Don't forget who is doing the SGR
wamekula
money.
Pesa.
The
Fertilizer money. Now Kimunya takes over and things are being streamlined.
Which
fertilizer? The price of fertilizer in the first term for the,
in the first term, the price of fertilizer was 2,500.
I am a mukulima.
The fertilizer now.
I can talk with authority.
2,500.
I can talk with authority. Me, I'm not just pepepe. I can talk with authority.
You think I'm not a farmer?
I am a farmer, serious farmer, commercial farmer.
You think I'm not?
I can tell you. I don't know. I'm talking about myself. I can tell you that the fertilizer candles that we experienced in the first time.
What was the price though of the fertilizer?
So now,
what was the price? What was the price of the fertilizer on the first term? 2,500. In the second term, when they pumped 6,000.
If you're in business,
please also.
If you're a business person, like I am,
the cost of the fertilizer.
If you are, you will understand that fertilizer is imported. Fertilizer is imported, and we don't pay using Kenya shillings or Uganda shillings. It is paid using a foreign currency. What we should do is comparing an apple to an apple.
So what was the cost of the first term?
How much is fertilizer retailing in Uganda or Tanzania?
What was
and
the
how much
cost
is
of
it
the first
retailing
term?
here? Okay? So,
the cost of the fertilizer in the first term was 2,500 when William Ruto, who's a farmer, in his respective rights,
subsidized.
No, and that subsidy
it was
program,
subsidized.
No, it was not. No, I'm not going to allow it. I won't allow it.
Subsidy
2,500.
The subsidy is taxpayers' money.
And what happened?
It is not William Ruto. You see, when you are running, when you've been in private enterprise like I've been, you cannot continue subsidizing because you've signed multilateral agreements with lending institutions. You cannot run a country through subsidy.
So the subsidy program, the answer was taken away after the handshake. And hence, we have 230.
Yes, it's been a question of
the handshake took away the subsidy program that brought us to 6,000 per fertilizer.
Subsidy, you are cushioning your people for a certain period of time. You are taking a short-term intervention so that your people don't suffer.
Which was the plan in the Big Four agenda?
It cannot be a long-term
strategy. The long-term strategy was to put in inputs.
The long-term strategy,
but then the handshake took away the strategy.
Is to build industry in this republic so that we are able to produce our own manufacture.
So we agree that the cost of fertilizer in the second term after the handshake
short-term, you can subsidize. You cannot subsidize forever. Subsidies are not person-driven.
Yes.
They are government-driven.
Alela,
yes.
It is very simple. He was doing compare contrast. First term, second term. First term, fertilizer was 2,500. There was a subsidy program, I agree, which actually was supposed to last a certain number of years, after which within the Big Four agenda, they were going to pump in the strategy of inputs in farming. The handshake came in, the subsidy was removed, the whole Big Four agenda was slashed away. Hence, in the second, and that was the second term, when now we are having fertilizer at 6,000. As a farmer, he should know it's very expensive. Whether it is a subsidy that is sustainable, and by the way, the same unsustainable program is the same one they are using now by actually subsidizing now the end product, which is the unga. So essentially, you can see the disruption that the handshake actually
And you think these ghosts of the failures of the Jubilee government will not come haunting?
These ghosts of the handshake will come completely down at Raila Odinga.
Is it the handshake?
It is the handshake that disrupted our president from actually keeping with the Big Four agenda and the strategy.
To that.
It is the handshake that subjected us to a completely unconstitutional, expensive affair called the Building Bridges Initiative. It is the handshake that I can tell you right now, if you look at the strongholds of Raila Odinga, they are now battlegrounds. You look at Tana River, I can tell you those people are very upset because there was a whole program that was in the first term that was supposed to ensure security by disarming, but then providing extra security. They got completely disrupted. They disarmed. They left those people vulnerable. They did not put in the complete program. Those guys have really suffering. They are dying because were left vulnerable. Look at costs. After Joho auctioned the port, that was a stronghold for Raila Odinga.
Could you rate?
He now went at 50%. Look at Western, which was a stronghold for Raila Odinga, and because of the shenanigans and actually his abuse and disrespect for the likes of Mudavadi and Wetangula, we are now at battleground. Look at even now when you come to Nairobi, where we knew Baba as the social revolutionary guy and whatever. We are now buying unga at 230, rent at, I don't know, 15 or 18% increment. We are paying water and electricity at crazy cost. I am telling you something. The handshake was not good for this country. The handshake was not good for the Jubilee administration. The handshake was never good even for Raila Odinga, because he knew that he messed him up. And the handshake was the disruptive.
First of all,
was the disruptive.
First term, second term.
Let me say this, Linda, and I've had my sister here articulate herself. You know, His Excellency, the 5th President of the Republic of Kenya, Raila Amolo Odinga, was never been in government. He's a Kenyan who decided that there is life after politics. That let me allow my brother, the president, who is sitting on the steering, room and space to complete his legacy. Okay? I think that's a gentleman. Raila has never been part of government. I know for sure and certain His Excellency, the Deputy President, my friend, is still a state officer and earning government salary. So again, when Linda talks about things have skyrocketed, yeah, it happens, but globally, have they come down? Even if you look at the United States, people are complaining about recession. People are complaining about commodity prices. People are saying, although there's more money in our pockets in the United States, but the cost of living has gone up. Joe Biden has created 8 million jobs in the last 2 years, but people are still complaining. So it's actually a global challenge. It's a challenge that will go beyond Uhuru Muigai's administration. We're hoping for, of course, a better future. But he has talked of an area that I have a lot of interest in, and which I understand. Because I was involved in the first solar project, private project in this republic, 52 megawatts that were rolled out, okay? The cost of power has come down. You can check. I think a few years ago, it was at 11 cents. Now we're at, I think, 8 cents. Yeah. So I don't know what maths my sister GlorIa is using when you say the cost of power has gone up.
It's the same maths I'm using that when they told us that
I'm now talking about
Karua
power.
said that fertilizer was 2,500 in the government
I am just talking about what she has talked about, that the cost of power has gone up.
Is 100.
She just said,
well,
the cost of power has gone up. It was 11 cents, my
While
sister.
it was
11 cents.
It has been extremely
expensive. It has now been
comparison to the previous.
It has been up to 8 cents. Yeah. So that is a reduction. Okay? And
it's not good enough, Mheshimiwa, and you understand.
We can do better. Yeah. We can do better. I'm sure.
The same reduction they had of 2 shillings for unga.
If you compare ourselves to Ethiopia, I think Ethiopia are doing about 5
Why would we compare ourselves to Ethiopia?
No, Ethiopia.
Why would we compare ourselves to Ethiopia?
Why? Produces more power than Kenya.
Why?
Now,
that is the question.
When I talked about
we have enough resources to produce power to actually give the whole of East Africa.
One second.
Alela, you know the question I'm asking. Yes. You do not do a shoddy job, then come and say at least
when Uhuru took over. These are facts, because I understand that sector fairly well. Yeah. We were at 1,300 megawatts of power. As we speak right now, we are over 3,000 megawatts of power. Okay, the importation from our neighboring countries, of course, is to cushion ourselves during the high peak.
Yes, from Ethiopia.
So yeah, it's during the high peak. But what we're saying is in preparation for industrialization. So in terms of short-term strategy, that is okay. You can, where you have a deficit, you can import. But in terms of long-term, and that is why probably continuity is better than taking a zero mentality approach to management, is saying that if Uhuru moved from 1,300 megawatts to 3,000 megawatts, who can move this country to 4,500 megawatts in another 5 years.
Can I say something?
Don't you think it would be misplaced to say
forget
that?
Forget about even that. Can I say? I want to talk about the issue. The zero mentality
to management.
The zero approach mentality that he's talking about.
Zero approach mentality to management.
Can I give you an example? Yeah. In 2013, the cost of milk was 38 shillings. Now it's 58. Cost of 1 kg of beef was 343. Now it's 521.
Which year was that?
1 liter of petrol, 2013, was 111. Okay. And now we are at 159. Now, assuming we take his analogy of continuing with whatever we've been doing, the trajectory is that we are saying we are okay with the rising cost. As a matter of fact, we should keep doing what we are doing to keep rising this cost. That is why we cannot have an approach where we are going to say we are going to keep doing the same thing because we are expecting a different result. Now, he calls it a zero management.
Zero approach mentality.
Mentality management. Yeah. And you know what I call it? It is simple. Factory reset. Factory reset is, this phone is not working. It keeps hanging. It is hot. I'm not receiving my messages. Yeah. Let us get it back to where it used to be when it used to work. Factory reset. Okay. You cannot have a factory reset when you are going to inherit a legacy of actually disobeying judiciary. So we now put in another guy who will continue disobeying the judiciary. Then you cannot say this guy has been monopolizing these industries. Now what we are going to do, juu tumemwachia maziwa na banking na nini, sasa sisi tukiingia tuchukue port na agriculture na nini. You cannot do that. The legacy of Uhuru Kenyatta actually dictates that whoever gets into this government must press the factory reset button, because the success, this country, by the way, let me say this very affirmatively, Kenya has been built on successive acts of land grabbing that go back to who? To Jomo Kenyatta. We must press factory reset and save this country. Save this country from state capture. Save this country from dynasty.
You see,
let's allow Mheshimiwa as we submit
and allow the hustlers and the Kenyan to actually prosper, such that a person like William Ruto, who was not born in State House or whose father was not a freedom fighter, can actually come out and say, I have worked hard, I have gone to government schools, I have actually gone through this system of the rough life.
And against this
I am telling you that the Kenyan dream must be sold, and that dream is
Linda,
William Ruto.
Linda, you know, my sister talked about cost of power going up. I've now, at least enlightened him. She's going out knowing that the cost of power has actually come down.
But not in the reign of President Uhuru Kenyatta.
It is in the reign.
Well, it is within the reign,
in the last 24 months.
Yes.
In the last 24 months.
Yes.
That's a sector I understand. Yeah. The last 24 months.
But you see,
but again,
looking at the 2013 all the way. Yeah.
2013, and she's making reference to 2013. Those of us who have dealt with the foreign currency will tell you that in 2013, the exchange rate was 83 to a dollar. We are now at about 112 or so. So if you look at, that range, it's a wide range. And therefore, most of the commodities we consume are imported.
Yeah.
We purchase them through, foreign currency. And therefore, the cost of commodities are likely to go up, not because President Uhuru Kenyatta is on the steering, but these effects of the global challenges that we are facing. Now, let me say this. We are getting into an election. Okay? President Uhuru Muigai wa Kenyatta has done his term. He's leaving a very strong legacy in terms of, saying, listen, Kenya belongs to all of us. Yeah. This ping-pong approach must come to an end. Yeah? That allow others also to demonstrate that, so that they feel part of Kenya. That is something that we may even
And you think they have an intention of doing that?
That is something that will remember Uhuru past even his life. Okay. The other thing is, of course, that Uhuru came in, he has done his 10 years, he's finishing his 10 years next week. We shall remember him for the mega infrastructure projects that he has rolled out. There are many that are there to be seen. They can be felt all over. The list is endless, particularly in the areas of road infrastructure, power generation from 1,300 to over 3,000 megawatts, in the areas of water infrastructure where it has stalled. And if we continue with the same trajectory in the water sector, with the water reforms that Martha Karua started, I can tell you that Nairobi, for example, where I was born and have lived, that by 2030 we will not have water shortages. Okay? So there has been massive investments in the area of the water infrastructure, which had a store. So those are 3 areas that we are going to remember this gentleman for. And of course, you've seen that some people can get very angry. Uhuru has demonstrated that, it's not that serious. It's just about competition. And he has said, listen, I'll hand over to whoever succeeds or whoever is elected as a president. He, as a Kenyan, has a democratic right to decide on who should take over from him and continue the legacy. Remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta has just been a driver of our vision, which is shared, Vision 2030, which was started by my favorite president, Emilio Mwai Kibaki, Vision 2030. He did his run. Kibaki did his run. Uhuru wa Kenyatta has done his run, and there are significant milestones that have been recorded in the last, particularly in the last 5 years. My prayer is that Kenyans will vote with their heads and not stomachs, and understand that we have exactly less than 8 years to achieve what we so desired in Vision 2030. Vote wisely, but in ending, election is a one-day event. We shall all queue. Let us vote peacefully. Vote for your preferred candidate. Go back home and continue doing your work, because that is what is important, building a nation. You cannot build a nation by throwing insults and wasting a lot of time. Please, we as human beings, we have more that we can do.
Yeah.
And from a management perspective, let me again remind ourselves that the biggest resource you can ever waste is something you call minutes or time. Please make effective use of the resource that is God-given. This one is not yours, it's not created. Others are created. You can create money, you can create markets, you can develop management, you can create them, okay? You can develop management information systems, but you cannot create time. Use it effectively.
Well,
may God bless Kenya. Vote wisely, of course. Vote for my preferred candidate, Raila Odinga. Thank you.
I guess we do not meet until that time when we get to the ballot. After that, we'll be here to analyze some more. GlorIa.
It's the Kenyan dream. I'm here to sell the Kenyan dream. I'm here to tell the electorate, by the way, for the first time in the history of this country, we are actually going to give this seat, this presidential seat, to a person who actually embodies the Kenyan dream. This is a guy who, despite all odds, despite everything he has had to go through, has actually made it to 5 days to election. This is a guy who has gone to school, local schools, just like you.
Kibaki.
Local schools, just like you. That local school in your region there down kwa grassroots, uko mashinani, alienda kwa hiyo shule. Secondary school, same case. University, Kibaki same case. He did not have a privilege of going inaitwanga, ilikuwa inaitwa parallel program. Same, yani the struggles you think you are the only one who's going through because wewe si mtoto wa nani. William Ruto si mtoto wa nani. He's a guy who literally embodies the Kenyan dream. You know, they talk about American dream. It's not class war. When we talk about American dream, we are not talking about class war. We are defining the Kenyan dream. And the Kenyan dream is for the majority of Kenyans, 50 million plus Kenyans, who do not have the privilege to be born in State House, who do not have the privilege to be born into a political family where your father was the president, who do not have the privilege to actually, what you can say, experience the premium life. Yani that Kenyan who literally I can tell you, when you sit down with William Ruto and he tells you, naelewa hiyo maneno ya kuhustle, he means it. The chicken seller. Allow me to.
GlorIa,
I gave him. No. Alela, decorum. It was his final remarks, and he had his final remarks. And no, not on your final remarks. Not on your final remarks. Decorum.
Proceed, GlorIa.
Respect. On these are my final remarks. He sold his dream until he didn't have anything else to say. Is when I said, okay, now it's my turn to speak.
Oh, really?
And I'm going to sell the Kenyan dream to the electorate. By the way, yes, I drove to studio. Was I born with was I born with a car? Was I born? I went to State House Primary. My father was a civil servant who struggled. My father was
Uhuru's father born with a vehicle?
Alela.
Definitely no.
Alela.
Oh, okay.
Alela.
Let me protect GlorIa.
Kindly.
Wind up, yes.
Because final remarks, in case my co-panelist doesn't know, final remarks, you have your time, co-panelists. That is how it works here. So, my final remarks, the Kenyan dream, for 50 million plus people who are not born in State House, who do not understand what it means to be in a dynasty family, who do not understand what it means to be born to a person, a name that is recognized, who are literally living from hand to mouth, who are trying to survive. The Kenyan dream is that person, and that is why I'm excited about this election, because even the MCAs, the Member of Parliaments, we have so many remarkable stories of literally the hustler coming out and saying, nipatieni kura, and they are definitely looking like they are going to take it home. We have 5 days. We need to actually show Kenyans and show ourselves and take pride in the Kenyan dream and say, we are going not to elect a project candidate from certain families and certain dynasties, but we are going out to elect the person who embodies and who defines the Kenyan dream, and who is actually out here fighting for fellow hustlers and trying to change this country so that hard work can be rewarded. And that person is William Ruto. And by the way, go out and vote. Do not let these fake opinion polls it's called psychological warfare. They are trying to get into your heads to show you mumeshindwa, but we are actually, we have won this thing. William Ruto ameshaingia status. I'm telling you, wake up. Wamesema ati by 12 o'clock wataanza ukarabati, wewe by 6 o'clock kuwa kwa station, weka kura yako. By the time wanaanza ukarabati, sisi foot soldiers wa William Ruto, let me tell you, we have an airtight system to protect hizo kura kabisa. Don't msiofie, wewe amka uende upiga kura.
Asante sana. Asante sana. All the best. I think it's on this very last lapse that in as much as this space is sacred and therefore we should not hold campaigns, we are left with no choice but to allow some of us people to hold their campaigns.
We're selling the Kenyan dream. We're not campaigning.
I do not know how much
Kenyan
of a dream it is for the people of Kenya, but all the same, 4 days to the general election. Let's all wait and see what happens. All the best. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So we shift gears in a bit. We get to the Baraza. Violet Auma on standby in Kakamega County for more updates, as well as she gets to engage you, the people, after this break.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.